Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Happy Wednesday, Nashville. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis from News 2 with you. I am broadcasting live out here at Assembly Food Hall on Broadway as we get set to kick off the SEC tournament. The Kentucky Wildcats getting ready to start things off, facing LSU at 11:30. Parker Kelly is at the controls back at our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Cory, how's it going? It's been a while since we've had a full show together.
Yeah, and you know, once again, we can't be seen together, so that's okay.
I know. We haven't been in the same room for almost a month now. I wonder if there's something going on there. But we'll figure it out at some point. I'm out here at Assembly Food Hall, just steps away from Bridgestone Arena. We will be out here on floor 2 at the South Stage until 6 p.m. Before tip-off, make your play at Assembly Food Hall, Nashville's tournament headquarters with more than 30 eateries and bars, live music, and Nashville's largest rooftop overlooking Broadway. You can grab food, drinks, and the energy of fans from all over the SEC before you head into the arena. And no surprise, I have already seen some Kentucky fans making their way around Broadway. And it's very rare that they start off the tournament, but they are game 1, 11:30 tip-off, and they are already getting ready for that game against LSU. Cory, lots to get into today. Of course, the Titans news, all the free agent signings, but I don't think we can start anywhere else other than the Max Crosby news last night. I don't know if I've ever seen a team back out of a trade like that. We've seen players during this legal tampering period agree to terms and they've backed out. I think Frank Gore is like the one that everybody points to of he agreed to terms with the Eagles and then backed out and went to the Colts. But I don't know if I've ever seen this. The Ravens back out of the trade that would have sent 2 first-round picks to the Raiders and instead turn around and sign Trey Hendrickson this morning. Little fishy what's going on there over in Baltimore.
Yeah, well, you know, you think about it, and if you have a trade like during the calendar year, the trade happens and it just goes through. So the only way it doesn't go through is if the guy like immediately fails the physical.
Right.
You know, you agree to this trade, you know, before the new league year. And so you're waiting for the new league year to go through for the trade to process, and it gives them time to back out. But Jake, I think it's more than a little fishy. I think anybody with a brain can look at it and say, they found out they could get Trey Hendrickson for the same price and not lose 2 picks. And they knew they could just point to the guy just had surgery. And so, I mean, it wasn't like you couldn't just point to that and say, oh, we're not going to do it now. I mean, it's totally acting in bad faith. And I'm sure it will be massively frowned upon all across the league. But again, it's a situation where I'm sure, you know, it's legal because of the timeline that it's happening. And, you know, I think they did not expect Trey Hendrickson to fall into their price range. I think they thought he was going to cost, you know, $35 million a year. What do you end up getting? He's going to $28 million a year?
Yeah, I think it's 28, but it could be up to 30 with incentives. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
I still look at that and I'm like, you know, that's until he's 36 years old. And so we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, I know a lot of Titans fans were interested in Trey Hendrickson on a 4-year deal. I think that's a little bit steep. You're probably going to get 2 more years of strong Pro Bowl level production from Trey Hendrickson. But those last 2 years when he's, like you said, 34, 35, 36, I don't know if you're getting 17 sack a season Trey Hendrickson like we've seen in the past. So I don't blame the Ravens, right? Like you look at the value that they got. You just got a player who maybe is a slight step down from Max Crosby. I think Crosby's a better player, but you didn't have to give up 2 first-round picks to get him, and you're paying him right around the same amount. So I get it in terms of value, and it's not illegal what they did, but you're 100% right. I think there is going to be a hesitancy among the NFL teams to deal with the Baltimore Ravens in the future, given what they just did of backing out of this deal and then turning around and signing Trey Hendrickson. The correlation is a little bit too much to say it's a coincidence at this point. The Ravens clearly were monitoring that situation with Trey Hendrickson, and once they realized that they could sign him, they said, "Oh, you know what? Max Crosby's knee is not looking too good. We're gonna have to back out of this deal and take our 2 first-round picks back."
I would beg to even surmise that they had a deal negotiated with Trey Hendrickson before they decided to back out of the Max Crosby trade.
Yes, they just could not announce that right in succession. You had to wait at least 12 hours to make it not look like it was completely related. Let's
make it look like we talked to you after.
Right. And for the Ravens, they're going to have to answer for this because all of the reports right now are that the rest of the NFL is very unhappy. Owners' meetings are coming up in a couple of weeks. It might get a little awkward down there in Palm Beach, Florida, when the Ravens meet up with the Raiders, because now the Raiders, they acted as if Max Crosby was gone. You signed a center to a $27 million a year contract. And now I do understand that they had $100 and something million in cap space. So they're going to be able to make it all work. But it is a little bit different looking at their situation now, where you have to add that $35 million cap hit for Max Crosby right back to your books, despite all of the big moves you've made this week.
I got a question for you here, Jake. Yeah. Is a center worth as much as Max Crosby?
No.
Does a center have the impact on the game a Max Crosby has?
No.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. I mean, the guy's a really good player. There's no question about that. But when you talk about where you're spending your money, there's a reason the Titans scoffed at that number, because it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. And so now look, Crosby doesn't want to be there. I get that, but that's an interesting swap out.
Right. To raise the salary of the highest paid center 50% in one offseason is crazy. $18 million was Creed Humphrey's deal with the Chiefs. $27 million for Tyler Linderbaum. And now the Raiders have to figure it out. They made some big deals. They signed Nakobe Dean. They signed Quay Walker. And now you got Max Crosby back on the books. Going to be an interesting saga here moving forward, as Trey Hendrickson is now a Baltimore Raven. 615-737-1025. Lots went on last night, Corey. I mean, Bam Adebayo scoring 83 points for the Miami Heat. Second most in NBA history behind Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game. I don't know if you could have given me 20 guesses. If you just said, hey, somebody scored 83 in the NBA, 20 guesses, I don't think I would have gotten to Bam Adebayo. I was pretty shocked.
You could have given me 1,000. And I haven't looked at the numbers on that game yet. I know I think I heard he was like 36 for 43 from the free throw line.
That is true.
Yeah.
Okay. So they fouled him over 20 times.
Yep.
Pulled a SGA last night, getting to the free throw line. Corey, I do have a question for you, because we were talking about, all your cryptic life last week. So do you believe that Wilt Chamberlain actually had a 100-point game? Because how convenient that, videotaping was around back then, but there's not any video evidence of his 100-point game.
Have you seen Wilt Chamberlain? Absolutely.
I know, but why is there no video evidence? I believe it, but
dude, it was 1950. Games weren't even on TV yet.
Videotaping was around, though. You're telling me somebody didn't think to record that?
You're saying there was videotaping. There was not videotaping. There was film. There was
same
film.
thing.
You had to film the game. No,
semantics.
It's not the same thing at all. Yeah.
People in the stands didn't just have handheld cameras that they could pull out and record him scoring his 100th point. So
you're telling me they couldn't do that on their iPhones back then, Jake?
Okay. Tell me what highlights you remember seeing from Wilt Chamberlain in his career. Because really the only TV highlights I remember seeing are of him in a Laker uniform. And that was at the end of the line.
Did they have three-pointers back then? That's my question. Did they have They didn't have three-pointers back then. So you're telling me he had 50 field goals for 100 points.
Dude, okay. Listen to me. Okay, you know how like ahead of the curve Wemby looks at 7'4" and whatever he is? Wilt was even more Okay. Wilt was 7 foot, like 7'1"
playing
in a
against
day
plumbers.
yes. I mean, and Wilt, the other thing people don't understand about Wilt is Wilt was an Olympic level volleyball player as well. Wilt is an elite athlete. Okay. So far, arguably most ahead of his time of any player in basketball history. All right. He was absolutely unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Jake,
So
I
you
am
score
so
100
good
points.
at getting Cory off topic. It's just fun at this point.
Yeah, Parker, I got to say, Joe Rexroad is not happy about it that you just said that.
Well, yeah, when he said
I
he
am
can't
trying
repeat,
to stir the pot. I am trying to stir the pot.
He's making you sound like you're a member of QAnon right now.
Final weird story from last night, Cory. I don't know. Did you watch the WBC game last night with Italy and the U.S.?
No, I heard about it. I was watching the Preds game.
So the U.S. lost, and
8-6.
They did not play their usual lineup. And a clip is circulating of Mark DeRosa, the manager, going on MLB Network yesterday morning and saying that the U.S. already has punched its ticket to the quarterfinals, which was just not true. And so he was benching players and not running his usual lineup out there because he thought they already had moved on. Now there's a chance if Mexico beats Italy today and a certain amount of runs don't get scored, the U.S. could be eliminated. That is a massive blunder from the U.S. manager. If probably the best team in the entire competition goes out in the pool play.
Well, it's not just a massive blunder by him; it's by all of USA Baseball. I
mean, how does nobody tell him that?
Nobody else is telling him, "Hey, what are we doing?" The people see the lineup card and they're like, "Hey, what are we doing?" I mean, so somebody had to know that they weren't locked in, and or maybe it's just this. Maybe he said, "It's Italy. Well, how are we going to lose to them?" But
Italy is a bunch of Americans with Italian grandparents.
Yes, I gathered that before I ever heard who played on the team. I'm like, I'll bet 90% of these guys are Americans.
Yes. So interesting game tonight. The U.S. is 3-1 in pool play. They need some help tonight to advance to the quarterfinal round.
Yeah,
Weird night in
Canada
sports.
can get some revenge.
Right. Yeah, and
Canada can win the baseball gold, and we get the hockey gold.
I don't think they would make that trade. I don't up there in Canada. Well, it was a weird night in sports. 615-737-1025. The Preds did get a big win, and we can talk about that later on. Preds needed.
That was weird too, Jake. They were awful. They were so bad in the first period. I mean, Chris Mason even said it. That's the worst period of hockey they played all season. They were horrendous. If UC Saros didn't spin on his head the last 10 minutes of that first period, that game would have been over.
They went down 2-0.
Steven Stamkos had steam coming out of his ears during his intermission interview, and it showed because they were a different hockey team the last two periods.
Yeah, and Ryan Ufko with the game-winning goal, his first NHL goal, and it was a beauty to help the Preds get that win in what amounts to a 4-point game. Instead of being down 5 points in the wild card race, you are now just 1 point back of that final wild card spot with 18 games to go. So we will get into that later in the show. But the big story of the week, of course, is NFL free agency. The Titans made a lot of big moves on Monday. We will get Cory's thoughts coming up next. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. The text line is mad at Parker right now for saying that Wilt Chamberlain may have not scored 100 points.
I did this on purpose. I believe it. I just really wanted to stir the pot.
You can't backpedal now, Parker. You're in the
I'll stand 10 toes down. It never happened.
615-737-1025. We will talk Titans on the other side. I am live out here at Assembly Food Hall on Broadway, just steps away from Bridgestone Arena as the SEC men's basketball tournament gets going, coming up at 11:30. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis from News 2, Parker Kelly, next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Cory, Curtis, Parker, Kelly. I am out here broadcasting live from Assembly Food Hall for the SEC Men's Basketball Tournament. 11:30 tip, Kentucky and LSU to start off the week. Our SEC Men's Basketball Tournament coverage with updates throughout the day is presented by Thompson Machinery, Murfreesboro. Visit cityautomitsubishi.com. Cory, before we get into the Titans, you did just text me. You have the next team odds for Max Crosby, which that is a big aspect of it that we didn't get into in the first segment. He's now back with the Raiders. Do the Raiders move on from him again? And where could he possibly go? The Cowboys apparently came out last night, said they're not interested in getting back into the mix there. So you got who is most likely to get Max Crosby?
Well, it's really fascinating because, word is that the Raiders were not willing to deal Crosby to the Patriots. And now it may be the Raiders crawling to the Patriots for a deal. And the Patriots are the favorite at 4-1. And, Mike Vrabel does love him some old aging veterans. So I could see that. The Bears are number 2 at 5-1. And that makes sense if you think the Bears are going to try to take a swing at the Super Bowl this year. And then there's Cleveland and Dallas at 5-1, even though Dallas has said they're out. Philadelphia is in on every high free agent, so they're at 7-1. And then it's the Steelers, Niners, and the Titans are back at 40-1, I think. So, but that's not a move I would make if I were the Titans personally.
Yeah, if I'm the Titans, I am not giving up premium draft capital for Max Crosby. If the price dropped to a certain level, maybe you would consider it, but I'm not giving up the 4th overall pick, which is probably what it would cost. Patriots is interesting because they've been involved with the A.J. Brown conversation. I wonder with the Romeo Doubs signing yesterday if they're now out of that discussion. But if Mike Vrabel had to choose between Max Crosby and A.J. Brown, who would he go after?
I mean, it's interesting because, Crosby's obviously still performing at a really high level. But, there are going to be concerns with his knee, and he is getting older. Where AJ, number one, he's going to be unhappy because he's never happy. So he's going to be unhappy at some point, and his level of production has dropped. And so, I think, that's why there hasn't been an A.J. Brown deal yet, because his level of production has dropped.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be trading him if he was the player still that they traded for. They would put up with his shenanigans. And when you get to the point where you're not worth putting up your shenanigans, then you're up for a trade. It's why Stephon Diggs has moved around the last few years. He stayed in Buffalo, for a while, because he was good enough to put up with the crazy. And, Texans didn't hang on to him, and now the Patriots aren't hanging on to him. And you're going to see the same thing probably with A.J. Brown. He'll go somewhere for a year or two, and then he'll be moving on.
Yes, I think A.J. Brown has pretty much proven at this point that he is not going to get along with everybody for more than a couple of years, and we'll see if that saga comes to an end somewhat soon. Lenny on the text line chiming in with a take I would expect from Lenny. If we would have taken the Giants trade last year, we would have had some draft capital to get Max Crosby. Well, guess what? You wouldn't have a quarterback either. So
there
you go. 615-737-1025. Cory, let's get into the Titans here. Big moves on Monday. A lot of them came relatively quickly. Wan'Dale Robinson was the first big move, one that we expected. Smoke had been leading to that pretty much all weekend, leading up to the legal tampering deadline, or the legal tampering period. And then within about 15 minutes, the Titans upgraded their defense in a big way. Brought in John Franklin Myers on the line, Alontae Taylor, and Cordell Flott at cornerback. What were your thoughts on the Titans day to open up free agency?
Well, I thought it was pretty strategic. I know everybody wants them to sign star players, but star players generally are not available in free agency because they're very expensive. And usually if they're available, there's a flaw. All right. Like I said with AJ, the only reason he's available is because he's not as good and they're not willing to put up with his shenanigans. And so, Trey Hendrickson, the Bengals are notoriously cheap. He's 32 years old. And I understand a team not wanting to pay a 32-year-old player over $100 million. I get it. So I think, the Titans, signed reasonable deals for good players. They have 2 starters at corner now. They have another starter on the defensive line now. You knock those down. You now have a punter. You've got some depth on the offensive line. You're still trying to hammer out center and guard, but you've got guys who can compete at least there. I don't think that those are solved, by any means. And you got a starting wide receiver. And, we saw all the numbers when they came out. And then, when the real numbers came in, those deals were better than they originally looked. And then when you saw how they were structured, those deals are even better. I think, those deals are all done to give the Titans starters for the now. And they give Mike Borgonzi 2 years more to draft players and find more starters for this team.
Right. And that's the conversation we had yesterday of most of these are 2-year deals. The agents are going to plug them as 3- and 4-year deals worth all this money, but they're 2-year deals. Wan'Dale Robinson, in fact, is almost identical to the Dan Moore contract from last year, where there is an out with 0 dead money after 2 years. So
that's an A+
you're right.
contract.
The Titans have bridged the gap here. Yes. And the agents tried to pump it up, and
Sure.
the first details
That's
that came
their
out
job.
was 4 years, 70. And then the agent said, oh, it's 4 years, $78 million, actually, even though the last $8 million is incentives. And when you look at the details, it's actually a 2-year contract worth about $38 million. So that's a really well done deal from Mike Borgonzi. And I think you've bridged the gap enough that you can try and become that draft, develop, retain team that they've talked about if you draft well. And you have the players to hopefully get you back to being competitive during these next 2 years while you build up that young base that you can only get through the draft.
And you're not going to be able to keep all of these guys because Jeff Simmons needs a new deal. Peter Skoronski is going to get extended, and then eventually Cam Ward's going to get a contract. And so, eventually, if you have a franchise quarterback on a 2nd or 3rd contract, you have to have players in your system that you drafted. There's just no way around it. The only reason the Titans have been able to go on these shopping sprees is because they haven't had a big-time quarterback on a big-time contract. Somebody asked me the other day, how come the Titans have so much money? I'm like, because they haven't had a quarterback. It's just that simple. And so, these are Band-Aids. Some of them are pretty good Band-Aids. And they allow you to hopefully be competitive and not go 3-14 for this 3rd straight year.
Right. If Mike Borgonzi and Robert Saleh want to keep their job, they have to start winning. You can't say we're only going to build through the draft, because if you just don't spend your money, you're going to be bad again next year. So I think you've at least made this team more competitive. You mentioned special teams. The Titans have now filled out their special teams units. Joey Sly, Morgan Cox, both back on 1-year deals. And then last night, Tommy Townsend was signed as the punter to replace Johnny Hecker.
I think he got
615-737-1025. Yes, 2-year deal, $6 million, I believe, for Tommy Townsend. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to text or call. We will continue talking Titans. Jada Brown from Vandy Women's Basketball going to join us at 10:15 as they prepare for Selection Sunday and where they might end up in the NCAA tournament. We are out here at Assembly Food Hall for the SEC Men's Basketball Tournament as it starts up in just about 2 hours. Kentucky and LSU starting off the day. Tennessee will play tomorrow afternoon, and a possible rematch between Vandy and the Vols on Friday afternoon. So lots of excitement down here on Broadway. You're welcome to come join us here at Assembly Food Hall. Our SEC men's basketball coverage is brought to you in part by Maple Street Biscuit Company, Wake Up to Wow, and Volunteer Hose and Gasket. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis, Parker Kelly with you on your Wednesday morning. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Right Time HVAC and Cromwell Media are teaming up to bring comfort back to your home. Is your heating system struggling or completely out of commission following the winter storms, or do you need a fix to get you ready for summer? You can nominate yourself for the Right Time Rescue and tell us your story. Enter today at thegamenashville.com/HVAC, and you could win a new HVAC system installed by Right Time HVAC. Locally owned and operated, there's never a wrong time to call Right Time. Jake Lyman, Cory, Curtis, Parker, Kelly with you on your Wednesday morning. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. I am live from Assembly Food Hall on Broadway, getting ready for the SEC men's basketball tournament, which tips off in just under 2 hours. But Cory, the Titans continuing to make moves in free agency. A lot of the big ones came early. And let's stay with the defense here. I think the Titans have done a really nice job of building up at least a starting level defense. You need depth everywhere. And we saw a little bit of a move last night with Jordan Elliott on the interior of that defensive line to help add some depth there. But I think you look at that starting 11 with the exception of right. I mean, he's going to be an upgrade from Sebastian Joseph Day, I would guess. That's kind of obviously it's a different system, but yeah, I think that's what he is. He's your third rotational defensive tackle behind Jeffrey Simmons and John Franklin Myers. But you add Alontae Taylor and Cordell Flott on the outside. Those are your starting cornerbacks now. And bring in Josh Williams, who can be kind of a depth add, your cornerback 4 or 5. Outside edge rusher opposite Jermaine Johnson, I feel like this defense is in a solid Robert Saleh, who, as we know, has been able to turn good defenses in pretty much wherever he's been.
Well, I think the number one key here, is the trade for Jermaine Johnson and then the bringing in of John Franklin Myers, because the number one key for this defense is going to be if they can get pressure by just bringing 4. And so, they are invested financially in those 3 guys heavily, so if they can bring 4 and get pressure, it allows him to cover with 7. And if you can get pressure and have 7 back in coverage, you ought to be in pretty good shape. There's a reason Sauce Gardner, looked so incredible with the New York Jets. Yes, he's talented, but they got pressure with 4. The defensive backs in Denver are lauded as being amazing. They got pressure with 4. And so, if you have good players back there and then you get pressure with 4, everybody looks awfully good, including the head coach and the defensive coordinator. So this whole plan is predicated on getting pressure with 4, and that's what makes it really interesting to see what that 4th piece is going to be.
Yes, and you thought maybe there would be another move coming on the edge, and there still could be. I wouldn't be shocked if they brought in a veteran on the edge, because right now your options there are Femi Oladejo, second-year player, you think has potential, but he only played 6 games as a rookie. Jalen Harrell showed some flashes, but he's a 7th-round guy, probably never going to be a starter, more of a rotational player. Makes you think that the solution there probably is going to come in the draft. I don't know if it has to come at 4, but I do think that you're going to need to spend one of those early picks on an edge rusher to fill out that defensive line. Maybe it's 4, maybe it's 35, but if you plug in a draft pick on that side of the line, I really do look at this defense and I say it should take a pretty big step forward from last year, where the cornerback room was ravaged, the safeties were thin, which you could probably still add some bodies there, and the defensive line was basically Jeffrey Simmons and a bunch of guys rotating in. I think this is going to be a much better looking defensive unit under Robert Saleh this year.
Look, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that they, number one, you've got starting corners. We Titans didn't have starting corners last year. That's a problem. So
you're not running Kaiir Elam out there every day.
It is interesting to see, what they're going to do with that other spot, because they there's 3 guys that they could draft at 4. If they don't take Jeremiah Love. But there are guys you can draft back at 35. A guy like Zion Young from Missouri, TJ Parker from Clemson. Those are just some of the names that are going to be, there's going to be somebody there. You could go to round 3 or 4 and get Gabe Jackas from Illinois, who had 11.5 sacks last year, 6'4", 275 pounds. He could put his hand in the dirt. So, there are going to be people there you can draft. You just got to get them right. I mean, that's always the big thing. You got to be more right than you were with Femi Oladeju. All right. If you're going to use a pick that high on them. So we have to remain and see. And just looking like at what else is out there, it looks like Hassan Reddick is still available. Leonard Floyd is still available. These guys are getting up there in years, 31 and 33. Danico Autry, 35 years old and still just hammering people.
Bring him back.
Is available. Yeah, I tell you that I like that guy a lot as a football player. Here's a guy that's available and might be affordable, and he's not a superstar, but I like him as a player, and that's AJ Espinoza from the Buffalo Bills. He's a rotational piece. Derek Barnett, former Brentwood Academy star, he's out there too. And again, none of these guys are long-term solutions, but they're solutions until you draft solutions. And so if you decide not to draft that solution this year, there are guys out there that you can come in and plug and play. As we saw last year with Draymond Jones and, I always forget his name, 53, who came in and played so well for the Titans.
Jahad
last
Ward.
year. There are guys Jahad Ward, who can come in and play. It's just a matter of, when you want to make those decisions. Because, I guess it's possible that when you pick at 35 that, say the highest receiver on the board is that much higher than the highest edge. You're like, all right, well, we're going to take him and we'll figure out edge later. I mean, that's possible. There's nothing that says you have to do it a particular way, and there will be players to sign.
At the very least, I think have opened up more avenues, and that's been the conversation Parker and I have had the last couple of days. Is by signing those 2 starting cornerbacks, you give yourself more options for your top picks. You've got 3 in the top 100, and then you've got the very top pick in the 4th round at 101. By signing those 2 cornerbacks, you now don't have a desperate need to go a cornerback high, which I think allows Jeremiah Love at number 4. I think it does give you that leeway to find the wide receiver you need, the edge rusher you need at 35, 66, 101, whatever it may be.
Well, and just look at the Kansas City Chiefs, and that's where Mike Borgonzi came from, right? L'Jarius Sneed, was he a 4th-round pick? And then you've got, the whole secondary from the Chiefs is leaving this year and getting big money. Yeah, I mean, Joshua Williams, who the Titans just got, was a 3rd or 4th-round pick. Carlos Watson, was not a 1st-round pick. And so the Chiefs have done a great job of taking end of day 2, early day 3 picks and turning them into star cornerbacks in the National Football League. And so, you hope that Mike Borgonzi, can nail some of those guys, on, rounds 3, 4, 5. I mean, Marcus Harris was around 6 last year and wound up being a decent player for this team. We'll see what he's got this year. But yeah, I mean, not only did that move give you freedom, the Jermaine Johnson trade gave you freedom. Because if you didn't have Jermaine Johnson, I don't think we're talking about Jeremiah Love right now.
No, I think that's true. Edge rusher was kind of a barren wasteland for a while there, and now you bring in a veteran who is going to be a year removed from that Achilles injury, and you hope that he can end up being a productive player for you alongside Jeffrey Simmons and John Franklin Myers, and you will have to add on the other side there. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call. We will continue talking Titans on the other side. Wan'Dale Robinson is a Titan, a former Kentucky Wildcat, and we've got some Kentucky fans out here getting ready for the SEC men's basketball tournament. They started off against LSU at 11:30. Again, our SEC men's basketball tournament coverage brought to you by Crown Royal. Live generously and life will treat you royally. And Metro Nashville Police Department. Learn more at joinmnpd.com. We will talk Wan'Dale Robinson when we come back, wrap up hour number 1. And again, Jada Brown from Vandy Women's Basketball will join us at 10:15. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5, The Game. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis, Parker Kelly. Finishing up hour number 1 on this Wednesday. I am live out at Assembly Food Hall on Broadway. Right across from Bridgestone Arena. Come out and join us before you head over to the games today. Kentucky and LSU start off the SEC tournament at 11:30. And also, we will have another chance coming up next hour to win a pair of tickets to see Nashville SC take on Inter Miami tonight in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Big game. So we will have a chance for you to win 2 tickets to go out to that one. Lionel Messi and Miami coming over to renew that rivalry with Nashville at 6:30 tonight. But talking Titans here, Cory, Wan'Dale Robinson, maybe the most telegraphed move that we've seen across the NFL. It seemed like it was a foregone conclusion all weekend that the Titans would sign the former Giants and Kentucky wide receiver. It came to fruition right around 1 o'clock, 1:30 Central Time on Monday. And he's not a superstar, right? Like, this is not going out and signing a wide receiver 1. But I mentioned it yesterday. We've seen what Cam Ward did with Xavier Restrepo at Miami. I believe at Washington State, he really loved his slot guys. You're getting a really good slot third down receiver that can get open in short yardage. And I think that's really going to help Cam Ward to have a guy he can rely on in the slot moving forward.
Also today, there is news the Titans have signed exclusive rights free agent Bryce Oliver. So Bryce Oliver will be coming back. He's shown to be a very good special teams player and depth in the wide receiver room. But you're right about Wan'Dale Robinson. He's a developing player who's getting better. 180 plus catches for the last 2 years. I think the most promising thing is you saw his yards per catch almost double from the previous year to this year, because it was minuscule the year before. So that's promising. And I know everybody looks at the price tag and thinks it's high. That's the price of doing business. And I don't want to call him a role player, because he's not, but he fills a role for this team, and it's not receiver 1. If it was receiver 1, you could put another $10 million on his contract per year, because that's what a real receiver 1 would cost. But if he comes in and he catches 90 balls and he moves the chains, he's going to be worth every bit of that $17 million. We'll see if we can do it. And, talking to some Giants fans, the thing about him that impressed them is, despite his lack of size, they say he's much stronger with the ball than his size would indicate, breaks more tackles than you would expect.
Yeah, and coming off nearly 100 catches each of the last 2 seasons, had 1,000 yards last year for the Giants. So I think it's going to be an improvement weapon-wise for Cam Ward. You're not done there. You probably need to draft a wide receiver too. But I think with Jim Dike, Alec Iamaner, Wan'Dale Robinson, and a draft pick, and we don't know what the Calvin Ridley situation holds at this point. A decision has to be made on him by Monday. And if you're not bringing in another veteran guy at this point, I really don't see the harm in bringing Calvin Ridley back. It's not like you need the cap space, but I could also see him being cut. Again, a decision has to be made by the 5th day of the league year. The new league year starts this afternoon at 3 p.m. Central Time, so they've got a little under a week to make a decision on Calvin Ridley.
Like, what we've heard is they're trying to trade him, and that there are interested teams. It's just, what can you get for him? Calvin Ridley is not young,
right? And
he's not getting better. And so I don't mean to be harsh. He probably shouldn't be a part of this football team's future. He has not been a consistent player. He has flashed at times. He's had some very big games, some very big catches. He's certainly talented, but I don't view him as worth the price tag. Can they afford him? Yeah. But I would much rather have $14 more million to go out and buy a player that I can depend on, whether it be a right guard, a linebacker, David Njoku to add to my tight end room. I would much rather have a more dependable piece with that money.
Yeah, and we'll see. Maybe a trade is in the works. You're probably going to get an extra pick for Will Levis at some point now with the signing of Mitch Trubisky. If you can get another pick for Calvin Ridley, or at least maybe a pick swap. Maybe you use one of those fits that you have and try and move back into the 4th round or 4th to the 3rd. There are options if you decide to move on from Calvin Ridley. Speaking of tight end, Cory, Daniel Bellinger comes in. And another Giants guy, which we've seen a lot of. I believe that's 4 Giants free agents who have come over to play for their, well, maybe not for their former head coach, but with their former head coach. And Daniel Bellinger, right. And Bellinger comes in. Chigakonkwo not going to come back. What do you think of that decision to go with a guy who may be more familiar with Brian Daboll's system? He's a better blocker, but maybe not quite as dynamic with the ball in his hands as Chigakonkwo was.
Well, I mean, look, Brian Daboll knows him and likes him, and so obviously that's why he's a Tennessee Titan. I think they needed a guy in that role to make them more stout in short yardage situations. I think it's a lot to pay for because I think you can find those guys generally in free agency. We've seen the Titans bring in Anthony Fasano and Luke Stocker and Nick Vanette, and all of those guys filled that role. Now, is Daniel Bellinger at 25 years old an upgrade from those guys who were all aging at that point in their careers? That's what you're gambling on. And, like you said, you've got the cap space, so maybe that's why you do it as well. Because, you're paying $8 million a year for a guy who is not going to be a big part of your passing game, but can still be an important piece to your offense.
Right. And I think it seems like Mike Borgonzi is deferring to his coaches a lot on the type of players that they're bringing in. You look at the connections that could be made. All of the Giants guys that have been brought in, you bring in Jermaine Johnson in the trade, you bring in John Franklin Myers, who played under Robert Saleh. And I understand it. You want to bring in guys who know the system and they can step in and hit the ground running. But how do you feel about a lot of these moves being guys that the coaching staff is familiar with rather than widening your scope to the rest of the league?
First impression, it lacks creativity, right? I mean, that's it lacks creativity. And by the way, their teams weren't good, but just because you have bad teams doesn't mean you don't have some good players. All right. Quinnen Williams was on those Jets teams. Pretty good player. I don't think anybody's going to doubt that. So, first impression lacks creativity. Oops, sorry. But not that big of a deal. I got too many toys in front of me. But, when you also look at the fact that it's not unusual. I mean, what did Mike Vrabel and John Robinson do when they came here? They brought in New England Patriots. What did Mike Vrabel do when he went to New England? He brought in Tennessee Titans.
Right.
When guys take over at new places, they want a few guys around them that they know they can trust. To get the message across that guys they don't have to teach as much to as the other guys, and guys that can be leaders and teachers on the field at the same time. So it shouldn't surprise everyone. To see it all happen in one day is a little jarring. I get that. But, I mean, like I said, Bellinger seems like a lot to me. Outside of him, Franklin Myers got more than you expected, but I think there was competition for him. So I don't know that any of these are egregious. What's the offensive lineman? Austin Schlottman. That one wasn't on my. Yeah, that one wasn't on my bingo card. But you know what? He's a depth piece, and we'll see.
Yes, and the Titans still have some work to do. You talk about the interior of the offensive line. It isn't exactly confidence-inspiring at this point. But we at least have seen some moves there that add some depth, and we'll see if there's more coming. Kevin Zeitler still out there.
PK reported yesterday that Zeitler wants to play a 15th season. So we'll see if that means it's a 15th season here in Nashville. It would make the most sense. He's got a family to move around, and they're all here. So we'll see.
615-737-1025 is the phone number. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on the program. I am out here at Assembly Food Hall on Broadway, getting ready for the SEC men's basketball tournament. Game 1 starts up in just over an hour and a half. Excited for a great week of basketball over at Bridgestone Arena. Again, Tennessee starts its week tomorrow. It is a 2 p.m. tip over there at Bridgestone. And then the winner of that game will face Vanderbilt on Friday. So we will talk about both of those teams later on in the show. Heading into hour number 2, we'll keep talking Titans, and also Jada Brown from Vanderbilt Women's Basketball joins us at 10:15. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis from News 2 with you on your Wednesday morning. Parker Kelly at the controls back at our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Again, we are live on floor 2 at the South Stage at Assembly Food Hall until 6 p.m. I am out here right now. Jason Big Joe at noon, DVD at 3. Just steps away from Bridgestone Arena, where the SEC men's basketball tournament starts in just under 90 minutes. We will talk about that tournament coming up later this hour. Also, your chance to win Nashville SC tickets tonight against Inter Miami. And Jada Brown joins us in about 15 minutes. Vanderbilt women's basketball waiting to learn their fate in the NCAA tournament, likely going to be a 2 seed when the bracket is announced on Sunday. But Cory, wrapping up on Titans free agency, Mitchell Trubisky was the first move that came in. The Titans backup quarterback, and now opens the door for a
cartwheels.
See, that's been one of my points the entire offseason has been Titans need to sign a backup quarterback and trade Will Levis, and I got my wish. So Will Levis now available for trade. How much do you think the Titans can get for him, and what do you think the timeline looks like? Is this something that happens closer to draft time or maybe sometime in the coming days?
It'll be interesting. By the way, on the trade front, we were talking about Calvin Ridley. Michael Pittman went for a pick swap with the Steelers.
Right.
So it's hard to see him going for more than a pick swap with the Titans looking to possibly deal Calvin Ridley. As for Will Levis, it's a good question. Do teams, how healthy is he? I think that's the big question. I don't think anybody's going to trade for him until he can pass physical. And so, we don't know how close he is to passing a physical at this point and being able to come in there. So, it may not be until OTAs. It may not be until training camp. I think a trade largely depends on his health. Because I don't think anybody's going to bring in a quarterback who can't throw the football yet.
No, it's a very good point. And we've seen the failed physical saga that's gone down with Max Crosby. There's a lot more that went into that, clearly.
I don't think the Titans are getting 2 ones for Will, but we'll see.
I don't think so. You can set the price high, but somebody's got to meet it. I don't think it'll be that high. But Will Levis, now kind of the odd man out in that room with Mitch Trubisky in. And Cory, how do you think Mitch Trubisky fits in? It's clearly an upgrade from Brandon Allen in terms of if Cam Ward gets hurt. Mitch Trubisky, I think, can step in and isn't going to go scoreless the rest of the game like Brandon Allen did against Jacksonville. Wow. But I think it's a good fit. It's a guy who's been around Josh Allen for 3 or 4 out of the last 5 years, and I think has developed himself into a nice backup quarterback who clearly has the skills to succeed if he's asked to play.
Yeah, look, Mitch has had some success in the National Football League. He has won games as a starter in the National Football League. He's just proven not to be, a difference maker. I think he is a higher end backup quarterback. Is he, the best backup quarterback in the league? Maybe not, but your hope with your backup quarterback is you go 2-2 over 4 games. That's your hope. And I think Mitch Trubisky certainly gives them a better shot at that. As you look at like skill sets for these guys, and Mitch Trubisky was the 2nd pick of the draft. So, when you talk about physical abilities, he checked a lot of boxes coming into the league, a lot more than Brandon Allen, who's, a lot smaller than Mitch Trubisky is. And so he's also played with Brian Daboll for a year. So, Daboll knows how he works with him, how he operates in a backup capacity. And so you have some experience there as well. I think that's promising. I think that, look, you don't want to lose Cam Ward, but as soon as we all saw Brandon Allen come on the field in Jacksonville, we knew that day was pretty much over. And it was even worse than we thought it was going to be, frankly. And so, this is a massive upgrade over that. How much of an upgrade would it be over Will Levis if he returned? We don't know because we haven't seen Will play in a long time. But it's a promising move, and I like the price tag. 2 years, $5.25 million. That's not a big price tag. I know Marcus is back with the Commanders, and they're paying him. I think he's making upwards of $8 million a year, and he's viewed by a lot probably as the best backup quarterback in the league right now. But they have to because their quarterback got hurt 3 times last year.
Right. And with Cam Ward, he showed, I think, a little more durability than you may have expected in year one. He started all 17 games before getting hurt on that first drive against Jacksonville. But the expectation can't be that he's going to go out there and do that again and start all 17 games. It just doesn't happen that often in the NFL where you're able to stay healthy. In fact, he was only on the injury report, I think, once all year. He had like an ankle or a knee early in the season. But outside of that, he was really healthy. You need to have a better backup plan than Brandon Allen, who clearly was not ready to step in at the NFL level. And I think Trubisky does that. He's a guy who can keep your head above water if Cam Ward is to get hurt. It's kind of Mason Rudolph-like. Like Mason Rudolph was a fine backup quarterback when he was here. He wasn't going to win you much, but he kept you in some games. I think Trubisky is probably a little bit upgraded of Mason Rudolph, of a guy who can come in. He's not going to lose you the game completely, but he's probably not going to go out there and win you one.
No, I would agree. I think he's probably an upgrade over Mason Rudolph. And, as far as Cam goes, the biggest step in keeping him healthy is running the football and protecting him and not getting him sacked as many times. I mean, and the thing is he didn't get hurt getting sacked. He got hurt diving for a touchdown.
Right.
And, that's learning not to fall on your throwing shoulder. That's what that is. I mean, as soon as he went down, I was like, he's hurt. I know that fall. And so, I do think Cam, has been durable throughout his college career, and he was durable last year. And I certainly think they're in a better position to keep him on his feet more than they did a year ago. And you talk about the addition of Wan'Dale Robinson. That's also to get the ball out of his hands more quickly, and keep him upright as well.
And speaking of keeping him upright, quickly on the offensive line, I know we talked about Zeitler possibly coming back. What are your thoughts on the plan at center? If it is a Schlottman-Slater competition to take over at center, how do you feel about that compared to going out and spending money? Maybe not Tyler Linderbaum money, but there were some other starting level options in free agency the Titans could have pursued.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can't spend money everywhere. They still have money to spend, though. So I wouldn't close the door on that. I know TD has brought up the name Dylan Parham a lot, and I'm not sure if he has signed anywhere quite yet.
I don't think so.
Yeah, and so I would not close the book on that. And if they did want to do that and they did want to give Jackson a shot, you have, Schlottman, who's, I think, a 7-year veteran and has played some, has started some games. And, would you like something better? Yeah. Yeah. I think, if that's the way you're going to go, you're hoping and praying that Slater's the guy you think he is. I still have a hunch they're going to bring in a center. It might be that Parham's agent is waiting to see how all these deals pan out.
Right.
And then, like you said, the center market got reset, and the, Parham's agent may be shooting for the sky right now. And the Titans might be like, no, we're not paying that. He's not that player. Just because we give him $18 million a year doesn't mean he's an $18 million a year player. That just means that's how much he makes. And so that would be my guess right now, is that those two look, I think both of these guys they brought in could start for them, but I don't think they're the first option to start for them. I think they're both depth pieces. That's my guess. I don't, they're not being paid like they're starters. I'll put it to you that way.
No, it's a very good point. And I think you feel a lot better about the offensive line depth if they aren't starters. I think they're both capable if called upon, but I don't know if you want them to be on your starting front line on week 1 this year. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call. More Titans talk coming up throughout the show, but again, it is SEC men's basketball tournament week here in Nashville. Bridgestone Arena going to be packed as we get 15 games over the next 5 days. We will transition to college basketball coming up next. Jada Brown from Vanderbilt women's basketball going to join us and talk about Vanderbilt's NCAA tournament hopes and what could come up next week after Selection Sunday. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Cory, Curtis, Parker, Kelly with you on your Wednesday, live out here at Assembly Food Hall on Broadway. And we go to our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We are now joined by Jada Brown, a senior on Vanderbilt's women's basketball team, the 6th-ranked team in the country, and looking forward to the NCAA tournament next week. Jada, thanks for coming on again. So glad to have you with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Well, Jada, coming off the SEC tournament, and now you get about a week to rest up before Selection Sunday coming up this week, likely going to be hosting games at Memorial Gym. What's the excitement level among the team to get ready for March Madness next week?
There's a lot of excitement. March Madness is the best time of the year, and so it's hard not to be excited, and it's always a surprise. You know, there's the projections, but those usually aren't always accurate, so you never really know what you're going to get. I mean, obviously we expect to host, but we don't know who we're going to be playing and kind of our journey to the Final Four, so there's lots of excitement.
Jada, last 2 years, you've been part of this tournament and gone out to Virginia Tech and Duke, but haven't been able to get through this first weekend. How do you feel the experience from the last 2 years will be able to help this team, especially with the ability to play at home in the first 2 rounds?
Yeah, I mean, being able to play at home is a huge advantage, and we're grateful for that. But I think we're going to take what we learned the last couple of years and that gut feeling that we felt that just, you know, doesn't feel good. I think we're going to, you know, take our memory of that and use that as fire coming into this year's tournament.
Hey, Jada, Cory Curtis here from News 2. Congratulations on what's been a historic season for you guys. I think one of the things that I've enjoyed watching you is how you guys have responded to situations. You know, you didn't play great against Austin Peay, and then how you responded to that. You know, you walked into a Lions Den at South Carolina, and Shea Ralph was adamant you would be better for it, and you guys were absolutely better for it. You go to the SEC tournament, and you faced a different kind of challenge. I mean, they physically went after Michaela. How good of a lesson was that for you guys, and how much do you expect that to be the MO in the tournament, to see teams basically try to rough her up?
Yeah, I think it's going to benefit us that we've been seeing that kind of throughout the whole season so far, and having to learn how to play when they take away our main scoring option, or how we can still get her good looks. It's only going to make us better and stronger for the tournament.
And back to that situation, you know, as a player, you know, to see your coach stand up for a teammate like that, you know, I know a lot of people would criticize the coach for getting thrown out of the game. I would go the other end. She's saying this is not acceptable behavior or treatment of one of my players, and she let everybody on the team know it.
That's right. And I think after that moment, we all wanted to run through a brick wall for her. We always knew that, you know, she would do that for us. We just haven't seen that in a game. She's always very calm and composed. And what happened last week doesn't change anything about her character. I actually think that's one of my more favorite memories of playing here. And I haven't told her that. And I'm not sure if she'll think that's a good thing or a bad thing. But that's just something I'll never forget. And it just goes to show how much she loves and cares for her players. And she's willing to go to war for them. So
I'll just say this. She knew what she was doing. That doesn't happen by accident.
Right.
Yeah, Shea said that maybe she should have gotten thrown out of the game earlier after that, and seeing the way you guys reacted. Jada, going back a couple of weeks, you were celebrated on Senior Day, but before that game against against Alabama, I believe.
Yes.
No, excuse me, Kentucky. The Kentucky game. What was that moment like for you, and how have you been able to enjoy the culmination of your 4 years at Vanderbilt?
Yeah, it was a surreal moment. Of course, you come into the program and you experience senior nights for all of your teammates, and then you blink and it's your turn, and you're wondering, how did we get here? But everyone tells you it goes by fast. You never believe them, and then it happens to you, and you're like, where did the time go? But I say we, as a collective, seniors felt very celebrated and loved and supported. It was a great day, and then being able to cap it off with a win just was the cherry on top.
And Jada, you talked about the unknown of the tournament, and you never know who you're going to play. You guys have 27 wins this year, and they're not just 27 empty wins. You beat Texas. You beat Oklahoma. You beat Michigan. I mean, how much of it is knowing we can beat any team in the country. We've shown that. We're ready.
Yeah, it's just that right there. I think being able to get those big wins throughout the season has instilled within us a mentality that there's nobody on our schedule that we can't beat. But I think it's going to come down to knowing that, like, we don't have a redo after, this tournament.
Yeah.
Like, you're one and done. You can't slip up or have an off day. Like, we need to be locked in and focused because any game could be our last, and we want to make a really deep tournament run.
We're talking with Jada Brown, senior on Vanderbilt's women's basketball team. Again, they will find out their NCAA tournament destiny, I guess, coming up on Sunday. 7 o'clock is the selection show, likely going to be hosting. Jada, you look at this team and the staff, and there's a lot of March success that you have. I mean, Shea Ralph obviously has 7 national championships. You've got Kylie McLaren on staff who played at UConn. And even one of your teammates, Jack Alengam went to the Final Four last year with Texas. Do you think that the experience from the staff and the players is going to be able to help you when you get into these games coming up in the next few weeks?
Absolutely. And I think Coach Ralph has really created a really strong staff. And they always say we have the best staff in the country. And it's for a reason. Lots of success, lots of winning, especially in March. So we're definitely going to lean on their experience and expertise when we get into those heat of the moments and just kind of down to the wire.
Last one for you here, Jada. You look at the way that this team has worked this year. Obviously, Michaela and Aubrey, they are playing close to 40 minutes a game. But how have you viewed your role where matchup-based, you could be out there for 25 minutes, and sometimes it's fewer, just depending on the way the other team is playing? How have you viewed the way that Shea Ralph has kind of used the rotation, including you off the bench?
Yeah, it really just takes buy-in to the system. Just like you said, the lineups and who we're playing, the matchups matter. And so when you kind of trust what she's doing and, she needs certain people for certain games because, you're able to defend a player, or she needs height for one game. And so maybe that game might not be one where I'm playing a ton of minutes. But really, I just want to see the team win. And so for me, I would define my role as use me as you need me, but I just want the team to win. That's the main priority.
Jada Brown from Vanderbilt women's basketball, 27-4 this year, 6th ranked team in the country. And again, the selection show coming up Sunday night. Vanderbilt very likely going to be hosting games at Memorial Gym next weekend. Jada, thanks so much for taking some time. Wishing you the best of luck the rest of the season.
Thank you so much.
Jada Brown joining us, and Vanderbilt going to be an exciting March, looking to advance to the Sweet 16, and getting to host games is going to be crucial. The last 2 years, I think Vanderbilt found out that going on the road and having to play multiple games in a weekend, it's tough to advance through and get to the Sweet 16, getting to face likely a 15 seed and then a 7 or a 10. A good chance Vandy could find themselves into the second weekend this year for the first time in over a decade.
And if they do have one of those off days in one of the first 2 rounds, you've got the home court, to help kind of bring you back. So I think that, not that guarantees anything. We've seen Tim Corbin, and company be the number 1 team in the country and not get out of the regional. So it doesn't guarantee anything, but it can help. And they've certainly earned it. It's been an unbelievable year. I don't look too much into that SEC loss. Maybe I should. I don't. And I love that her favorite moment was Shea Ralph getting tossed.
I mean, it fired the team up. Watching Shea go down the line on the bench and give the double high fives to everybody as she walked to the locker room. I mean, for Shea, that's not something she wants to do. I know that, but it was something in the moment she felt like she had to do. And I think the team really appreciated that she stood up for them. And maybe that's a spark that can carry them through the rest of the month.
It was for the team. It was for the officials. It was for all of college basketball saying, I am not going to stand here while you try to take my best player and knock her into the bleachers. Okay. I'm just not going to stand for it.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Big thanks to Jada Brown for joining us and excited for next week. And it'll be nice not having to travel for the first week. And hopefully Vandy can get some wins and then head out to Sacramento or Fort Worth. 615-737-1025. We'll keep talking college basketball on the other side because we are out here on Broadway at Assembly Food Hall for the SEC Men's Basketball Tournament. 1025 The Game has your SEC Men's Basketball Tournament coverage with updates throughout the day, presented by Thompson Machinery, City Auto of Murfreesboro, Maple Street Biscuit Company, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, Crown Royal, and the Metro Nashville Police Department. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis from News 2, Parker Kelly with you on your Wednesday morning. Big thanks to Jada Brown from Vanderbilt Women's Basketball joining us in the last segment. Vandy Women's Basketball will find out what they are up to for the NCAA tournament on Sunday. 7 o'clock is the selection show. Vandy very likely will be on the 2 line, either in UConn or UCLA's bracket. So we will find out for sure on Sunday night. The men's selection show is coming up Sunday evening, but still a lot of basketball to be played until then. Quickly, Cory, before we get into the SEC tournament, big news out of Indianapolis. Okay. The Colts and Daniel Jones have agreed to an extension. 2 years, $88 million.
Wow. Well, I think he's just guaranteed to get hurt again because the Colts can't seem to do anything right at quarterback lately. I mean, that's a lot of money, and I would have to see the way the contract is structured. But they're clearly putting all of their eggs in that basket, and I get it. I mean, in the sample that you had, it was really good. I mean, and is it the other thing is if it doesn't work out, it's 2 years. And
right.
And you're going to be drafting probably somebody anyway, so you'll be able to afford them anyway. So I think that's a reasonable deal, for the Colts as much as 2 years and $88 million can be, and you just hope he's the same player when he comes back. So he had a broken leg and he tore his Achilles. Is that what happened?
Yes, something. I think he had a fractured leg, and then he was trying to play through it, and then he tore his Achilles.
Yeah, that's not great. And because we saw how Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers looked coming off of the Achilles tears, so it'll be interesting, when they get him back, and then how effective he is when he comes back. Especially now he doesn't have Michael Pittman. He's going to have to throw more than 47 passes to Alec Pierce. Because he's getting $29 million. That number needs to go up significantly.
Yeah, getting $500,000 a catch for Alec Pierce.
600 at 47 catches, it would be $617,000 per catch.
Oh wow, even more money every time Alec Pierce gets his hands on the ball. Daniel Jones is from Jordan Schultz. 2 years, $88 million, could be worth up to $100 million. He gets 50 in the first year. I would have had him play on the tag if I was the Colts this year. Coming off the Achilles injury, especially with Daniel Jones, where it's like you brought him in to compete with Anthony Richardson last year. And yes, he was a revelation based on what you expected from him. They were 8-2, I want to say, when he got hurt. But it's only a 2-year deal. It's not like it's that much that they're committing to him, but still – I think playing on the tag might have been the smart move just to see what he is coming off the injury.
I guess the danger in that is if he plays really well, then he goes to free agency and he's even more expensive.
Yeah, so that is true.
I mean, if I think you're protecting yourself for a year if he performs on the high end. Look how desperate teams are at quarterback. The Jets just traded for Geno Smith. Okay. So, there's a lot of desperation out there. And after what he showed those first 8-10 games, somebody else is going to be willing to pay him and give him a shot.
No, it's a good point. And I think the Colts they did a nice job of locking him up without committing too much. I think a 3 or 4 year deal would have been a lot, but they're able to keep him in Indianapolis for at least 2 more years. 2 years, $88 million, could be worth up to $100. And we will continue to keep an eye on any news.
Has any quarterback ever made more money and accomplished less than Daniel Jones?
Maybe Matt Flynn.
No. He
didn't make that much money, but
this is a second dip.
Much.
No, but he dipped once. Daniel Jones has doubled anything.
What was Daniel Jones' contract with the Giants?
It was $45 million a year.
Yeah, you are right, man. Yeah, Daniel Jones. He is cashed in.
He's doing okay. He's like Kirk Cousins 2.0.
Yeah, career earnings. So yeah, he made $46 million from the Giants in 2023, then 36 from the Giants / Vikings in 2024, and then 14 million last year. He will make $88 million. So by the end of the 2027 season, I believe he'll be over $200 million in career earnings.
That's all right. I mean, inflation's tough, but I think he'll make it.
I think he'll be able to scrape by on that salary. Let's get into some basketball here. We are on Broadway, the SEC men's basketball tournament, getting ready to tip off in under an hour. LSU and Kentucky starts it up in the 9-16 game. Kentucky having to play on Wednesday. Very rare to see the Wildcats lead off the tournament, but I have seen plenty of Big Blue Nation already out here at Assembly Food Hall. And with Kentucky, they're one of those dangerous teams in this tournament that's talented, but obviously underseeded. Would not shock me if they end up playing on Friday against Florida, who of course is the favorite to win this whole thing with the way that they've been playing lately.
Yeah. I think playing in the first round actually benefits Kentucky. This is a game they should win easily. How often do you see teams pick up that momentum after the first game, and then the team who's had to sit out for a game or two starts a little slowly? And so I think this gives Kentucky a chance to pick up some steam. And even if they go 2-1 in the SEC tournament, I think that's a pretty good tournament for them. You pick up 2 more victories, and your only loss is to the hottest team in college basketball.
Right.
But if they got to that game, that would be a home game for Kentucky without question. And so it would be interesting to see. I know Nashville would love to see that game. So, but I think it benefits the league, and I think it benefits Kentucky in this instance for them to be playing on day one.
Yeah, and you're right. I think there is a balance of the rest versus rust debate that happens in these tournaments of, yes, eventually, if you're playing your 4th game in 4 days, the legs are probably getting pretty heavy. But I do think there is an advantage to getting your feet underneath you, playing in the gym back-to-back days that could allow Kentucky. They would play Missouri if they beat LSU today. I think I would take the Wildcats in that one. And also, there's a lot on the line in this tournament. Of course, everybody wants to go win the whole thing, but Texas is right around the bubble right now. And you've got Auburn,
Oklahoma,
who is sitting, as Joe Lunardi projects right now, as the first team out despite being 16-15.
How is that possible, Jake? How is that possible? How are they even a consideration? I mean, I have no idea. I mean, look.
Now my blood's boiling because of all this.
Okay, so they've got the win over Florida, and I think that's what Lunardi points to. I mean, so if
and the 3rd highest strength of schedule in college basketball, but still you have 15 losses.
You've lost half your games. I mean, so if Tennessee Tech had beaten Florida, are they in based on the strength of their Florida victory? I mean, come on, it's not realistic. It's insulting to all the other teams in college basketball that you're going to. I mean, number one, I think you should be 500 in your league to get in the tournament. I think that should be a prerequisite. But to be 500 overall, I mean, come on, man. Let's have serious adult considerations here. And I know what people are going to say. Well, if you put them in the ASUN or if you put them in the OVC, they're not. They're not in those conferences. And you know what? They have a wealth of backing them compared to those schools. So they have a lot more things going for them. And yes, their schedule is tougher. And yes, you have to produce better. And I'm sorry, going 16-15, there should be another bracket for Joe Lunardi, and that is not in the conversation. They should not be in the conversation.
Auburn, they are top 40 in the net. They are 4-12 in quad 1 games. And the precedent was set last year where North Carolina was 1-13 in quad 1 games or something like that. And they snuck in. So the power conference teams are going to get the benefit of the doubt. The big question becomes, and Cory, I know your thoughts on this. If Miami of Ohio, who is 31-0 this year, if they slip up in the MAC tournament this year, can you leave a team that went 31-0 in the regular season out and put a 16-15 Auburn team in? Because that is going to be a question, whether you like it or not, on Selection Sunday, if Miami of Ohio can't win the MAC tournament.
Miami of Ohio is ranked like 20th or 19th in the country, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to leave a top 25 team out of the tournament. I mean, that's not a realistic conversation to me. The MAC is not the SWAC or the MEAC or or the Big South. The MAC is a bigger conference than those. It is. The competition's better, and I think what is likely to happen, Miami's in. If they're not in, we just need to scrap the tournament and start over. And that's not a reason to expand the field, because you can't get a one-loss team into the tournament. That's just insane. That would just be crazy. I think what the likely scenario is it's a two bid league with Akron, who's very good, getting in as well. Because if Miami of Ohio doesn't win that tournament, it's likely going to be Akron. But I can't even believe we're having this conversation, frankly.
The one takeaway I think we can all have from this conversation is there is no need to expand the NCAA tournament. If 16 and 15 Auburn would be a lock to get in a 76-team tournament, there's no need for it.
No, we don't need to reward 500 teams. And I'm talking about 500 overall. And again, I will pound the table for 500 in your league. I will. And I will take all the hate you have for me for that. If you can't go 500 in your league, you're not good enough.
615-737-1025 is the phone number. You can text or call our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. The SEC tournament, 45 minutes away from tipping off. Kentucky and LSU will start off the day, the 9 versus 16 matchup. Then in the second game of the day session, it is the Auburn Tigers, the 12 seed in the tournament, taking on Mississippi State. In the night session, Texas and Ole Miss and South Carolina, Oklahoma round out the night here on Wednesday. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis, Parker Kelly with you. We will talk about the local teams coming up next. Tennessee, the 5 seed. Vanderbilt, the 4 seed, could be in for round 3 between the Commodores and the Volunteers. We'll do it next. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis, Parker Kelly. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game, finishing up the second hour on the show. Live out here at Assembly Food Hall on Broadway. The SEC men's basketball tournament tips off at 11:30. Kentucky and LSU. Auburn and Mississippi State, the second game during the day session over at Bridgestone Arena. And before we talk Vols and Vandy, Cory, you were texting me during the break. Auburn's three of their losses are to Arizona, Michigan, and Purdue. They are all good teams, top 10 teams, but they've lost those games by about 30 points each. And we've had a similar conversation, Cory, on the women's side with Tennessee and the Lady Vols. It's like they have 16 wins. Yes, they've lost to good teams, but they've gotten blown out by good teams, right? Like UConn beat them by 30. South Carolina beat them by 40. And their best win is Kentucky at home. I look at them the same way and say, if we're going to let the metrics decide who should be into the tournament instead of actually looking at the record and how the teams are playing, then just let a computer decide it. Make a BCS model for the NCAA tournament. Let the computer pick the teams rather than actually looking and saying, this team has won 16 games. They've gotten blown out by the good competition that they've played. They should not be in the tournament.
They're also in a free fall headed into the tournament, an absolute free fall. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, they should be in. No, they shouldn't be in. I mean, what are they? Are they 16 and 13?
Tennessee, 16 and 13. They've lost 7 straight games for the first time since 1970.
Yeah, I mean, I know most of the projections have them in, right?
All of them have them in at this point. They are projected to be about an 8 or a 9 seed.
You see, that's what's staggering to me is that they're an 8 or a 9 seed with 13 losses and losing 7 games in a row and getting blurted out. I mean, their free fall has been as shocking as anything I've seen this year. I mean, because I know Mia Paldo got hurt, but she shouldn't have met that much. That team, there's something wrong inside of it, where they have collapsed, and they, when things get tough, they have just not been tough enough and very good. And, they'll be fortunate to get into the tournament. I can't believe they're not on the bubble, like you're talking about.
Right.
Especially with the way they have finished. It has been so unimpressive. And I know the early season games count too, but there's something about how you're going into March that should matter.
Right. And for Tennessee, what they can put up is they played the toughest schedule in the country. They played Louisville and UConn and UCLA in the non-conference, but you lost all those games, and they really weren't close, any of them. So I look at it.
One thing to play games, there's another to win them.
Right. And for Tennessee, I don't think anybody in that program wants to keep playing. Like, I really don't. You look at Kim Caldwell on some of her interviews, she looks defeated. But that is the one program that has reached every NCAA tournament. So if they get a bid, it's not like they're going to say no. Like, they're going to go play. But I would say if I'm an 8 or a 9 seed and I see Tennessee is my draw in the first round, I'm loving it.
Oh, you're licking your chops. Yeah, you're licking your chops. And you just tell your team, hey, get up on them in the first 10 minutes and this thing's over. All right.
Right.
We will keep them down. And I like Kim Caldwell. And I saw an interview that she did, maybe it was after the Vanderbilt game, where she said somebody told her, year 2 is always the most difficult. She was like, well, I wish somebody would have told me about it because this is miserable. But, so I know she's on the hot seat some. I don't know if I'd be ready to give up on her at this point. I want to see what she comes back with next year. You took a big swing on her and a big chance. And I think if you pull the plug now, I think you're giving up too soon. I think you give her another year to see how much she can get things straightened out.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think she's going to get another year. Danny White. So she'll get another. She has a good freshman class in there. Can she retain them? Will all of those players be back? And can she do a little bit better in the portal this year and get people who are culture fits heading into year 3? So it'll be very interesting.
Absolutely.
Selection show for the woman is coming up on Sunday night. But for the men, the Tennessee men, they are awaiting the winner of that Auburn and Mississippi State game. And that could be a big game for bubble considerations for Auburn. The winner of that game gets Vanderbilt on Friday. So we just saw round 2 between Vandy and Tennessee in Knoxville back on Saturday. Vandy did almost everything they could to lose that game in the final minutes, but they did come out on top and clinched that double bye in the SEC tournament. What do we think if we get round 3, Tennessee and Vanderbilt? Who do you think has the edge in Bridgestone Arena that I'm sure will be rocking on Friday afternoon?
Is Nate Ament going to play?
Right, that's the big question.
That's the $4 million question, Cory.
Right, that is a huge question right there.
Look, if Nate Ament's going to play, I'm probably going to like Tennessee. I mean, I have concerns for Vanderbilt right now with how they're shooting the basketball. You know, Tyler Nichols' shooting numbers and Duke Miles' shooting numbers have not been good. Okay, I think Nickel only took 3 shots in the last game. But they have not been able to free those guys up for shots that they are knocking down. And the other thing is that Tennessee game, they just got murdered on the boards. Murdered. And I think it was like 40-22 or something like that. And so there are some things that they've got to do better. But, you know, we forget, I think they're 24-7, right?
Yes.
So they've won a lot of games.
Yes.
And they've had a very good – and I think, you know, when they were 16-0, they raised all of the expectations. And I think earning that double bye, and by the way, winning those last 2 league games to go 11-7 versus 9-9, I think makes a world of difference in their season and the perception of their season. And I think, you know, getting the double bye for them, you know, they're a team, you know, they didn't need the first day of the tournament. I think they're great with the double bye and only having to win, you know, 3 games to win the league title or to win 1 game to get to the weekend. And so it'll be interesting. And also Tyler Tanner has had to do a lot of heavy lifting this year. And for him to get a couple extra days, I don't think is bad. But they've got to have some – and I should say Okereke has stepped up for them. And Chandler Bing has stepped up for them. And so I think their scoring depth has had to become a little deeper because those other guys haven't produced as well. But if they want to make any type of run in the NCAAs, those guys have got to step up and they have to shoot the basketball better.
Yep, 100%. And Tyler Nickel has been one of those guys, was one of the best 3-point shooters in the country for about the first 2/3 of the season and has gone a little bit cold over the last month. So we'll see if he can heat back up in March. Let's go to our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. David is called in wanting to talk about the bubble. David, thanks for calling. What you got for us?
Yes, I think what they need to do is they need to stop all the tournaments on Saturday night. And what they need to do is take the conferences that have you only get in by winning the tournament. I think if you win the tournament on Saturday night and you're Sunday, you need to turn around and play the conference champion. And then if you beat the conference champion, you deserve to go in on Selection Sunday. If you don't, then the one who won the conference champion should be able to go.
David,
okay, so you're saying
I appreciate. He wants the conference champion to get a shot at winning
the regular season conference champion,
the automatic bid. Yeah.
Yes, the regular season.
But the problem with that is
the tournament champion.
Well, the thing about that though, David, and I come from mid-Majorville. I'm a Missouri Valley guy, and I lived the heartbreak of losing the winning the conference championship, and then losing in the title game on another school's home floor, and it was crushing to not get in the tournament after that. But it is up to the league and how they give out their automatic bid. So leagues could give it to the regular season champ if they wanted to. They are electing to give it to the tournament champion in hopes that someone else wins and their regular season champ gets in. It's their way of trying to get 2 teams into the tournament. It's also their way of trying to sell tickets to the conference tournament and make it actually mean something where people have to show up. So, you know, I understand where you're saying that. I do. But these leagues have that choice, and it's their choice to award it to the tournament winner instead of the regular season champ, who you really could argue has earned it much, much more.
Well, what I'm saying is, if the conference champion does not win the tournament, let's say it's Belmont and Belmont wins the conference tournament, well, they got beat. Well, whoever won the tournament on Sunday should have to play Belmont, and the winner goes to the tournament.
So it's basically double elimination at that point.
Yeah.
So a double elimination for the conference champion.
Right.
Well, I don't think they want to play that many games. And if that's the case, then the conference champion should just be placed in the championship game once the tournament starts. Because that's what you're doing.
And
you're saying that they're in the
some
championship.
Conferences do make it easier for their regular season champion. Like they do the flat brackets where it's like if you're the 10th best team in the regular season, you have to play 7 games to go win your conference, while the winner in the 2 seed only have to play 2. Right. So they try and make it as easy as possible for the regular season champ to win. But if you can't win the games, you're not going to get in.
Yeah.
615-737-1025. I promised 2 tickets to see Nashville SC and Inter Miami. Let's give them away now. Be caller number 4 at 615-737-1025. You'll win a pair of tickets to see Lionel Messi and Inter Miami take on Nashville SC in the first leg of this round of 16 matchup in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. 6:30 kickoff, massive game. Caller number 4 at 615-737-1025 wins 2 tickets. Hour number 3 coming up. Jake Lyman, Corey Curtis, Parker Kelly, next man up. 1025 The Game. Final hour, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman joined by Cory Curtis from News 2. Parker Kelly is back at the controls at our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. One more hour with you on this Wednesday, and we are under 30 minutes away from tipping off the SEC men's basketball tournament right across the street from where I am at Assembly Food Hall. Excited to be out here. We've got the Big Blue Nation is filling in here as Kentucky gets ready to start off their tournament week facing LSU at 11:30. We'll give you all the scoreboard updates and all the coverage right here on 102.5 The Game. Again, we are on floor 2 here at the South Stage at Assembly Food Hall until 6 p.m., so make sure you come out and see us. Chasing Big Joe after me, and then DVD coming up at 3 o'clock. Cory, we did just give away those tickets to Nashville SC and Inter Miami tonight. Big one for Nashville SC. First of 2 legs with Inter Miami, because it always has to be Inter Miami when Nashville SC is in one of these tournaments. What are your thoughts so far? Nashville SC is off to a good start to the season and has to face their arch nemesis again tonight over at Geodis Park.
I'm just going to put it to you this way. They're a wagon. They are absolutely fantastic. I went to the game Saturday night with my daughter, and they were spectacular against Minnesota. That game could have been 5-0 easily. You know, bringing Andy Nahar back, the combination of adding Christian Espinoza and adding him to the mix with Hani Mukhtar and Sam Surge, and it really looks like, I don't know if it's just that he's a year older and a year better, or the addition of those guys. Patrick Yazbek's game has really risen as well. He was very good in that game Saturday night. They are much more poised to challenge Miami, you know, because last year they did go, you know, they did win a game against Inter Miami in that playoff series, but you knew Miami was just the more talented team, especially with Messi. They are much more poised and much more built to contend with that team. And I am really excited to see just how good they are. Now, the thing about it being it's not an MLS game, it's a Champions Cup game, so we don't know who's going to play. But I will say this, winning the Champions Cup is important to Inter Miami. And Lionel Messi is 1 goal from 900. So I would point to him playing, would be my guess. We'll see. I'm very concerned about the weather tonight.
Yes.
But I'm excited for this game. I'm excited to see, because Nashville SC, they've played, I believe, 5 games across all competitions, and they've outscored their opponents 14-2.
Wow!
So this will be an early test against the MLS Cup winners to see just where they're at, because right now where they're at looks pretty darn good.
And again, it is an aggregate 2-leg matchup here in the round of 16. So this is the first leg here in Nashville. They'll return next week to Miami to see who moves on to the quarterfinals in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. But exciting stuff tonight. It's a fun week here in Nashville with the SEC tournament. And again, Lionel Messi making his return to Geodis Park tonight. 6:30 kick out there.
Uniform reveal tomorrow.
Right, and uniform reveal tomorrow. I'm sure we will get into that with TD. Down at the Pinnacle, Titans revealing their rebrand, and that's, 7:30, 7:45 is when that's going to start out there. So lots going on with the Titans, too, bringing in new players this week as well with free agency. So it's been a busy week around here.
Yeah, Preds saving their season last night. So
right, and we will get into that coming up this hour as well. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Again, we are just about 20 minutes from tipping off the SEC tournament. Kentucky and LSU starts the day, followed by Auburn and Mississippi State. That's the day session. Then tonight, 6 o'clock tip for the night session, Ole Miss and Texas. Oklahoma is another bubble team. They will face South Carolina at 8:30 Central Time. We will talk about those games, but back into the Titans after this. The Titans made some moves this week. Does it show their hand a little bit at what they might do in the draft? We will get into that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Again, our men's SEC tournament coverage this week is brought to you by Thompson Machinery, City Auto of Murfreesboro, Maple Street Biscuit Company, and more. We will continue to cover the SEC tournament, Titans, Preds, Nashville SC, all of it through the final hour of the show. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis from News 2, Parker Kelly, next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis, Parker Kelly alongside you on your Wednesday. Getting geared up for the SEC tournament. 15 minutes away from tip-off of Game 1, Kentucky and LSU. We'll have your coverage right here on 102.5 The Game all week long, live and on location. We are at Assembly Food Hall today, upstairs on the South Stage until 6 p.m., so make sure you come out and join us. Let's get back into the Titans here, Cory. We talked a lot about the free agency additions in the first hour, and I know that they didn't fill all of the needs, but I do think with what they did, you feel a lot less urgency at some of those main positions. You mentioned the Jermaine Johnson trade makes you feel a lot better about edge, even though they still need to add there. Cornerback looks a whole lot better than it did a couple of days ago. Does this open the door for Jeremiah Love at number 4? And we saw some of the other teams around the NFL who look like they might have some interest in Jeremiah Love, the Chiefs, the Saints, maybe the Cardinals. All of them added at running back this week. The Titans did not. You know, it's still early. We've got 5-6 weeks to go until the draft, but it does seem like there's a little more smoke day by day about Jeremiah Love becoming a Tennessee Titan.
Well, from what I've understood from around league circles is that it's believed now that the Titans are the floor for Jeremiah Love at number 4. I still have concerns about Arizona at number 3, not necessarily picking Jeremiah Love, but be willing to trade out and get more picks because they're terrible. But you know, because you saw them, weren't they the Texans trade partner for Will Anderson?
They were
3, yeah. And so they've shown they're willing to trade out of that spot, and they're not going to get a quarterback there. So they may be willing to trade out. Now the Commanders can't trade with them. They don't have the draft equity to make that trade. And like you said, the Saints and the Chiefs already added running backs because they did not believe they would have the opportunity to draft Jeremiah Love. So I think, you know, a lot of arrows continue to point at the Titans. I am concerned about somebody trading up to 3. Who that is, I don't know, but that would be my big concern if that's who you want to pick. And I just think what you wanted free agency to do was to give you options. And you know, you don't want to have to draft a certain position. All right. You want to be able to draft the best players. That's what this is about. It's about stacking your board and drafting the best players and not passing on a player that's better because you're like, well, you know, we really have a hole at outside linebacker we need to fill, so we're going to take this guy instead of this guy. You know, you don't want to do that. You want to take the best players on your board because good players don't get you beat. Okay, you want all the good players that you can get. We've seen the Titans reach for positional depth before, and frankly, it hasn't worked out very often. And so, you know, this gives them options, and really, you know, yes, you were as it goes to the draft, you know, you were looking for starters, obviously with $100 million to spend, but you were also looking to not be shackled to certain picks. You were looking for options, and they've done that.
Well, and looking at free agency initially, I didn't think the Titans would go big for 2 starting cornerbacks. I figured it would be sign 1, draft 1. And if you're going to draft a guy that you feel like can be a starting cornerback from day 1, odds are it has to come in one of those first 3 picks. You would have had to take one at 4, at 35, 66, because you had nobody in that room. But with the moves that they made, you bring in Flott and you bring in Taylor, who are clearly starters with what you're paying them. And then Williams as a depth piece, that cornerback room looks a whole lot stronger. And now maybe you can push those spots back and say, all right, we got 35 and 66. We can find starting level players at edge and wide receiver there. It just makes you feel a lot better about spending the 4th pick on a running back when you don't feel like you're neglecting some of those other needs that you have at more premium positions.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you look at it and, you know, I've done plenty of mock drafts, and I know there's plenty of good corners still available in rounds 3, 4, and 5.
Right.
You know, does that mean those guys are starters? I don't know, but I think they're guys that you can take and see what you got. Because as I said earlier in the show, that's what the Chiefs have done. They've done really well in those rounds at cornerback. And last I checked, Mike Borgonzi came from the Chiefs. Now, I expected them to sign 2 corners, Jake. I did not expect them to sign 3. That's one that caught me by surprise. But that's the guy that Mike Borgonzi knows from Kansas City. And all 3 of these guys are relatively long. They're all still relatively young. And they all have team friendly deals, so we'll see if any of them get to the end of their deals. You would kind of hope that one of them would earn another deal, but we'll see.
Well, yeah, you look at the moves the Titans have made with Mike Borgonzi as the GM and Dan Moore. You're bridging the gap until you can find your franchise left tackle. I think Taylor and Flott are pretty much the exact same thing. Of you are trying to bridge the gap until you can load up that room with young players. And it makes a whole lot of sense because Cam Ward's extension isn't going to come, if he gets it, isn't going to come for another couple of years. By that time, you'll be able to move on from these guys. And the hope is at that point, you have the draft picks that have been developed into starting level players that can take their place. But again, all that starts with drafting well. Mike Borgonzi, through his first draft, I think you're in wait and see mode with his first 3 picks. Cam Ward, showed some good things as a rookie. Femi Oladejo and Kevin Winston were hurt. But I think you look and you saw Mike Borgonzi was able to find some really good, promising players on day 3. Your starting tight end, your Pro Bowl receiver and punt returner, Chim Dike. Possibly your starting center in Jackson Slater. Marcus Harris could start in the nickel for you. So I think you look and you say, all right, if Mike Borgonzi can hit on the top picks and get some young star players in here, he's going to be able to find some depth in the back end based on what we saw last year.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's got to. I mean, because the cupboard was so bare with young players. I mean, that's why you're buying $100 million worth of players. And so he's got to hit on picks. I mean, I know the draft is kind of a 50-50 proposition.
Yeah.
He needs to do better. He needs to go 75% probably. This year. Last year the numbers were pretty good. And so the numbers need to be pretty good again this year. They need to top out on that. And picking 3rd, that guy needs to be a star, or 4th. That guy needs to be a star. Yeah. And 35, that guy can't be a developmental piece. He's got to be an impact player. I mean, that's practically a first round pick. And unless of course they decide to trade down again, which they could do to get more numbers. But I do think that they've got the option. We all know that they need another edge, right? But they don't necessarily have to do it in the first 2 rounds. I mean, in the second round, they could take a receiver, they could take a corner, they could trade back. They could do those things because, like I said, there are other edge rushers if you believe in them, like Gabe Jackus from Illinois is the one that I keep touting. Yeah. 6'4", 275, 11 and a half sacks last year. He's a good football player. And you can get him in around 3 or 4. How much different is he than Zion Young? I don't know. I'm not the talent evaluator that they've got 15 guys on their staff to be. But I just look at the size, the length, the production in the league, and I go, that guy's a pretty good player. And so, and also you could kick the can down the road to next year and say, well, we'll just go get our top end edge guy next year because we're a year ahead on the corner market that we thought we were going to be, or we're a year ahead on the receiver market that we thought we were going to be, because like nobody expects them to be a Super Bowl contender this year. I mean, there might be some fans, and congratulations if you've got that amount of hope in you. But I view this as a building process in that, I right now I'm putting together a Jaws Lego set that thing's 15 bags. All right. It doesn't get put together in a day. It looks pretty cool right now with 7 bags in, but it's not done yet.
Yeah, and this team, I think everybody has to look at it as they need to be better. We need proof of concept that this team is moving in the right direction. Like they need to be a competitive football team this year. Yeah, 7 wins I think is a good target for this team this year. And I know that's not what fans want to hear. They want to hear we're going to the playoffs and we're going to be competitive in year 1. But that's just not realistic.
That's more than the last 2 years combined.
Right. You need to be better. You need to show that you are trending in the right direction, but it's not a 1-year fix for this team. And I think you clearly got better on Monday with the moves that you made. But you're right. Your 4th and 35th pick this year, they have to be playmakers. Those have to be guys that you look at and you say, those are pillars of our organization moving forward that are going to get this team back to being in the playoffs. And that's why I'm coming around on Jeremiah Love, because I think in terms of riskiness, Jeremiah Love might be one of the most surefire guys you could get at the top of the draft. I think there are red flags with David Bailey. I think there are red flags with Arvell Reese and Reuben Bain. with the wide receivers. Like with Jeremiah Love, I think you look at it and you say, we take him at 4. He is going to be one of the best running backs in the league from day one. And I'm coming around on that, especially because there aren't that many blue chip guys at edge or wide receiver that you say that's a bona fide top 5 pick. I think Jeremiah Love might be that kind of guy.
Well, he's also a 3-down back. I mean, as good as Ashton Genty was in college, and he was amazing, he's not the 3-down back that Jeremiah Love is. And also, you're picking at 4, and there are a number of people out there who think that Jeremiah Love is the highest rated player in the entire draft.
Yes.
So you could get the best player, overall player on the board at 4. And like you said, this team needs playmakers on offense and on defense. And if he's the best playmaker on the board, I have no problem whatsoever. You know, as we keep saying, if you told me you were going to interject Jahmyr Gibbs into this offense, I'd just say, sign me up.
Yep.
Sign me up. That dude is electric. He is. And I know the Lions didn't go to the playoffs last year. It wasn't Jahmyr Gibbs' fault. All right. That guy is amazing. And I think Jeremiah Love can be a great player. You know, he's a bigger guy, 6'2", 215, but he's still explosive. He's got good hands. There is so much to like there. And by the way, also only 20 years old. Only
right.
20 years old. And, you know, because I don't, you probably don't remember this because you weren't here then, and you were probably about 4 years old at the time. The Titans, they drafted a guy named Javon Ringer out of
I remember
Michigan
Javon
State.
Ringer.
He had a great career at Michigan State, and they got him in the 3rd round. He was a good football player. But he had over 1,000 carries, I think, at Michigan State. And by the time he got here, you know, he had already lost some of the tread on his tire. Jeremiah Love, he's 20 years old, and he's splitting carries with Jadarian Price. He's still got plenty of tread left on the tires. He's fresh off the showroom floor.
615-737-1025 is the phone number. Ricky on the text line says 35 and next year's first for 3. Would that sell? I guess that would allow the Titans to come up and get Arvell Reese or David Bailey and Jeremiah Love, kind of like what the Texans did a few years ago. The Texans did that to get a quarterback. I can't see the Titans doing that. And I know you'll say the trade was for Will Anderson. It didn't matter who the trade was for. They picked 1 at 2. They picked 1 at 3. You took the quarterback to be safe, but you traded all that because you wanted to get the pass rusher and the quarterback. I can't see the Titans doing that and giving up next year's first. But
let me ask you this: if you knew you were getting Will Anderson, would you take it?
If I knew that if it was Will Anderson and Jeremiah Love, I think you could convince me on that. It's tough to give up.
If you knew this is the production you were going to get.
Right.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Right. Yeah.
But
yeah.
Like if you told me you're going to get, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get Will Anderson production.
Right. But David Bailey and Arvell Reese.
I would be really tempted.
I agree, but I don't think Bailey and Reese are Will Anderson. They're good prospects.
They're not that prospect.
They're not that type of prospect that you come up and trade your top of the 2nd round pick and a first for.
Well, they've all got question marks. That's why we've been tossing it around for the last month. You know, with Arvell Reese, he's got 1 year, and you know, I mean, I've talked to people who loved Arvell Reese, who think he is the most talented player in this draft, and there's nothing he can't do. And I don't doubt them, but there's just not very much proof of concept yet. He's played 1 year, and I think he had 6 sacks. You know, David Bailey had a huge year. He had a huge year, but is he big enough? Is he stout enough to play that edge, you know, for you in the run game? Or is he, and I hate to say just a pass rusher, because again, if he's Nick Bonito, you'd say sign me up. Yeah. And then, you know, Ruben Bain's got the arm length question. You know, although most people think he's going to be a really good player. I do too. But, with Will Anderson, there were no questions.
Right. Yeah, that was a guy that you said, sign me up. That's an all-pro pass rusher waiting to happen. And I don't know if any of those 3 guys you can say that. But we'll see. The Titans are going to have options at number 4, and I think they've opened up more doors for themselves with what they've done this week so far. And again, our football offseason coverage is brought to you by Tennessee Brewworks, the official craft beer of the football offseason coverage on ESPN 1025 The Game. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. You can text or call our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We will get back into the SEC men's basketball tournament in the last half hour as it tips off in 1 minute. Kentucky and LSU about to get going across the street. And also the Preds with a huge win last night in Seattle. Chasing down the Kraken, they were able to get a 4-2 win to start off their 4-game West Coast swing. We'll get into that coming up next. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis, Parker Kelly. Couple more segments with you on this Wednesday. The SEC men's basketball tournament is officially underway. LSU and Kentucky just tipped off across the street at Bridgestone Arena. And the first of 4 games today, first of 15 games over the next 5 days. So excited for that. I was just handed a burger from Pharmacy Burger up here. We are at Assembly Food Hall on the South Stage until 6 o'clock. So excited for it. You can come out and see us. Chase and Big Joe will take over at noon, DVD at 3. Whether it's burgers, tacos, sushi, or local craft beer, your team is here. Make Assembly Food Hall your first stop during the SEC men's basketball tournament. Right across the street from Bridgestone Arena. Go to assemblyfoodhall.com for more info. Cory, kind of bounce around a little bit here. Let's get to the Preds, because I feel bad we've taken so long to actually talk Predators hockey after the win last night. They have lots of 4-point games, quote unquote, the rest of the season, and this was one of them. They've got 2 against Seattle, 1 more coming up next week at Bridgestone Arena, 3 games against San Jose, 2 against LA. Those are the teams that are just, mashed up for that final wild card spot. Right now, the Kraken have 67 points. I believe LA has 67. San Jose has 67. It is LA has 67, and then San Jose and Nashville at 66. So 4 teams separated by 1 point, only 1 spot up for grabs. That is a massive, massive win for the Predators last night on the road.
Well, also because they've got Seattle coming back to Bridgestone Arena here in about a week. And so, you can only leap one team at a time, and that game goes a long way towards them leaping the Kraken if they can. Look, that first period they played, Chris Mason said it, and I support it. It's the worst period I saw them play all season. That was terrible. And the fact they were only down 2-0 was a miracle. But the fact that they were able to not only get the 2 points, but to not go to overtime and give the Kraken any points is huge. And again, you saw the young guys delivering. I mean, Matthew Wood sets up a goal. Schaefer scores it. You saw Ufko score his first career goal to win the game, and it was absolutely electric. It was unbelievable. Zach LaRue scored a goal. And so, this is why I wasn't upset about the trade deadline. I wanted to see these guys play. I want to know who's part of the solution for next year, and by the way, you still have your core intact. And if they can play, you can still make a push if everything goes right. Like, do I expect them to get in at this point? No, I still don't. But last night absolutely saved their season. They showed some guts, and the young guys continue to show that they do have some ability. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think Matthew Wood has been arguably one of their very best players since they came back from the break.
100%. We were talking about this with Max Hers last week. He started off so great this year. When he got healthy, he came out like his hair was on fire and scored 6 goals in his first 5 games or something like that. He was unbelievable, and then kind of hit that rookie wall. But since he came back from Milwaukee, coming back from that Olympic break, he has been one of their best players, if not their best player. And that's huge to see the young guys stepping up.
His confidence level looks like it's at a whole new level. And it looks like he feels like he belongs now. And like he's not afraid of what's happening or analyzing it. He is thrusting himself forward and making plays and putting himself at the forefront. I mean, it is a noticeable difference, and it's what this hockey team needs. They need some young forwards to step up, and you've had Luke Evangelista step up with a big year, especially in the assist department, and now you've got him stepping up. And if you can see, Ufko is a player they really like. And if he can continue to deliver for this team, it'll be a fun last 18 games to watch. Because I still remember the best year they had with Andrew Burnett was all the young guys. They fit what he wanted to do better. And so, maybe that's what we're starting to see. Who knows? But it was, if they lost last night, it'd be a pretty depressing day today because we'd be calling the season over.
Right.
I can't underline how big that win was.
That's why they call it a 4-point game, because you're 1 point back, but you would have been 5 points back if you lost. So it was a huge win. And you mentioned it, the young guys stepping up. Ryan Ufko with one of the prettiest first NHL goals you'll ever see, just weaving through traffic to the net and then sneaking it in short side to put the Preds on top 3-2. And Max Hers, we have him on every week, and we asked him about the trade deadline. And I know there was some disappointment about the way Barry Trotz handled the trade deadline, holding on to Eric Holla, holding on to Ryan O'Reilly, not taking advantage of the value that those guys had on the trade market. But you do look at the moves he did make, trading away Michael McCarron, Cole Smith, Nick Blankenberg, and Michael Bunting, and replacing them with these young players. You're now seeing Matthew Wood get a ton of ice time every night. You're seeing Fedor Svechkov back up at the NHL level. Ryan Ufko stepped right into the Nick Blankenberg role. Reed Schaefer is back in the lineup. So if these young guys can continue to show the potential that we know that they have, maybe this team gets better from those moves, the subtractions that they made at the trade deadline, rather than feeling like they lost something.
Yeah, I mean, it is something to, hang your hat on as you go towards the end of the season here, and give you some hope and some belief that you can do it. And and by the way, and it doesn't have to be Forsberg or Stamkos or O'Reilly, because the only goal they got from those guys last night was Stamkos empty netter to seal it. And so I think again there's a lot that you take out of that win outside of the first period that's promising.
Massive win for the Predators. They are on this long West Coast swing, as they have to do every year around the SEC men's basketball tournament. So coming up on Thursday, they will be in Vancouver to take on the Canucks. Then Sunday at Edmonton, wrapping up a week from yesterday at Winnipeg before returning home for another game against Seattle a week from Thursday. So lots of big games coming down the pike for the Predators as they battle for that final wild card spot. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. You can text or call. Last call for phones, as we have one more segment before we hand things off to Chase and Big Joe. We are keeping an eye on the SEC men's basketball tournament. And again, our coverage live from Assembly Food Hall is brought to you by Volunteer Hose and Gasket, Crown Royal, Live Generously, and Life Will Treat You Royally, and Metro Nashville Police Department. You can learn more and join at joinmnpd.com. Right now, Kentucky with an early 11-10 lead over LSU just over 5 minutes in. So just underway in the SEC men's basketball tournament. We'll give you more updates throughout the day, live here at Assembly Food Hall until 6 p.m. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Wrapping up the show here on Next Man Up 102.5. The Game live at Assembly Food Hall on Broadway today. The SEC tournament is underway across the street at Bridgestone Arena. Cory and Parker, you guys are missing out. I just dug into my burger from Pharmacy Burger. It is fantastic. You guys, I wish you guys could be out here with us, but the Pharmacy Burger right by us at the stage on floor 2, medicine for the soul in the form of fresh hand locally sourced beef. Make sure you check it out. The Old Time Meets Modern shop is a Nashville cult favorite for a reason, and it is absolutely delicious. So very glad to be out here at Assembly Food Hall and appreciate everybody at Pharmacy Burger for taking care of us today. And again, the SEC tournament has just started. Kentucky and LSU. Kentucky up early, and our SEC tournament scoreboard updates are driven by Toyota. Be listening for updates throughout the day. Toyota, let's go places. Let's go to our phone lines now, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Kenny the mailman is called in. Kenny, thanks for waiting. What you got for us this morning?
Good morning, friends. First of all, Cory, thank you for my family. Yesterday, WKRN did a feature on my uncle Lee Estes turning 100. He is also
Nikki McGee did that story. That's right.
Yeah, he's the silo man of West Nashville, and he is a very good person. So I don't know if you realize that it is still a thrill to see somebody you know on TV. So we appreciated that. Now, I hope Vanderbilt fans have appreciated this team this year for what it's worth. You haven't been around long enough, Jake. Cory, what has Vanderbilt done this year? They've only done 6 times in the last half century.
Oh, wow. 6 times in the last half century. They've won 20 games, I think, quite a few times. I'm going to say win double-figure SEC. I'm going to say no because the double I hasn't been around that long.
Oh,
I'm going
yeah,
to say
you're right.
win.
It's only since 2013.
Win double-figure SEC games.
Well, having single-digit losses for a season.
Oh,
and
okay.
You know what?
Yeah.
This team, they've had highs and lows, but they've stuck together. I really hope they win at least one game in the SEC tournament and one in the NCAA tournament, because that's all people go by now. They don't even follow the regular season. You'll hear the comments when they lose, oh, they were a fake, this and that. This has been a good season for a Vanderbilt team fan to follow the team. Y'all have a great day.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Kenny. Great stuff. Vanderbilt off to a great start this year. They went a little cold in February, but big win against Tennessee last weekend, and now get the double bye. They will face the winner of Tennessee and Auburn and Mississippi State coming up on Friday afternoon. Cory, before we wrap things up, can anybody beat Florida in this SEC tournament? Like, that's the team to beat? They won 11 straight. They're looking like they might be on the one line for the NCAA tournament for the second straight year. Can anybody get the Gators this week here in Nashville?
Well, I'll ask a bigger question. Can anybody beat them in the country right now? I mean, because they look like they might be they look like they might be a better team than the team that won the national championship a year ago. They're so long, they're so big, and they're playing so well and really getting better at the right time. I mean, they're going to have to be a little bit off, and somebody's going to have to play really well. I think there's it was funny because about 3 weeks ago, we talked about how this was the most wide open SEC tournament we've seen. And that all changed in the last 3 weeks when Florida just hit the gas. They look absolutely fantastic. And like I said, it's going to take someone else to play a great game and Florida to have a little bit of an off day for them to have it. If you told me I could have Florida or the field, I'm taking the Gators.
Yeah, if you just went chalk, and I think we both agree Kentucky probably beats Missouri tomorrow if they move on and gets to that quarterfinal round. But Missouri's not a bad team. Florida's path to a championship would be either Missouri or Kentucky, then Vanderbilt or Tennessee, and then Alabama or Arkansas. I think I'm taking the Gators in all of those games at this point. With the way they're playing, I think you'd be dumb not to, right? Like they haven't lost in a month and a half.
But they're a 1 seed, Jake. I don't think anything's going to change that. I think they're a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, and they're proven. They're well coached. They're long, and they can win home or away or neutral floor. There's not a lot of weaknesses there, and so yeah. I mean, I'll just pound the table that there are a lot of good teams in the SEC. There's one great team.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think you look 2 through 9, and there's probably not a whole lot of separation there. Like Alabama to Kentucky, like I think all those teams, they are NCAA tournament teams. They are talented teams, but Florida has clearly shown to be a tier above everybody as of late. But they play the tournament for a reason. It's 3 games in 3 days for Florida. They still have to go out there and win. But I think you're right. I think as long as they don't get upset on Friday, I think they have solidified themselves as a 1 seed. UConn's loss to Marquette last week aided them in that with Dan Hurley getting ejected in that game with 0.4 seconds left. So I think with UConn losing that one, the way Florida ended the season, I think you're right. I think the Gators are on the 1 line again, along with Arizona, Michigan, and Duke.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 1 line looks pretty darn good. The 2 line's probably not going to be very bad either. You know, when you talk about would be UConn and Houston on the 2 line.
Yeah, Houston and Michigan State along with Illinois is what Lunardi has right now.
Okay. Where's Purdue on the 3 then?
Yes, yeah. Purdue is Purdue is on the 4 line actually.
Okay, Purdue's on the 4 line. And is North Carolina up there on the 3 line?
North Carolina is also on the 4. No, they're on the 6 line, North Carolina.
6 line. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
So
I thought they were
the
better
3s are Alabama, Iowa State, Gonzaga, and Nebraska right now. So
okay. You know, look, if Alabama's a 3, that's great for Alabama. That number seems a little high for me, but Joe Lunardi knows more than I do. So
Joe Lunardi is not the end-all be-all, by the way. But this is the most available, the most talked about bracketology. So that's where they have them right now. Yeah. Vanderbilt and Tennessee both on the 5 line as it stands. I would think that the winner of that game on Friday, if they do match up, could end up moving up to a 4. But when you're talking about 4 and 5 in the men's game specifically, it's not that big of a deal, right? Like you're playing the same quality of opponent in that round of 32 matchup to go to the Sweet 16. In the women's game, it matters because you're hosting, and obviously that's a big deal. But on the men's side, not as big of a deal whether you're a 4 or a 5, which is where those teams are going to be.
Well, that's why it's always been a big deal about being the 1 seed because, you know, there's always seemed to be a clear difference between the 1 seed and then, like, if you're a 2 or a 3, how big of a difference is there between those teams? Usually not very much. And then, you know, you're talking, like you said, about a 4 and a 5, not very much. And then you're talking about matchups. And you don't want to be the 4 and you don't want to be the 8 because then you've got to play the 1. And so anything that keeps you out of the bracket with the 1 seed until the regional final is where you want to be.
Yes, and with Tennessee and Vanderbilt, probably going to be tough to get onto that bottom half of the bracket wherever they are right now on the 5 line. Maybe if Tennessee got upset, maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing if they slipped down to a 6. But lots going to be sorted out over the next few days. Selection Sunday coming up, and we will find out the fate for both Tennessee and Vanderbilt as they still have some games to play this week here in Nashville. Cory, always a pleasure having you on. We will do it again next week, maybe in the same room for the first time in a long time.
We'll see. It would require me to bathe. I don't know if I can handle that.
Appreciate Cory Curtis joining us. Tomorrow, we will have TD on the show, and we will be live down at Chiefs on Broadway, so just down the street. Excited for that. Big thanks to everyone here at Assembly Food Hall for having us. We will be here all afternoon from 12 to 6, Chase and Big Joe, and then DVD. That does it for us. Chase and Big Joe are coming up next. You're listening to 102.5 The Game.